Hi, this is Phoebe Blamey, and welcome to the Happy Money Journey podcast for today. I'm really excited to have you here. I have spent most of my life working in financial services. I'm a qualified financial planner and I have my own mortgage broking business since 2006. I know that as a busy woman, it's really hard to get your life into some sort of shape. And so I'm here to help you on your own happy money journey. Right. So, welcome to our mini money makeover workshop. Thank you so much for taking the time to, out of your evening, come out here, be part of this, because this is something that I actually am really, really excited about talking about and doing stuff about. And what I want to talk about tonight is really basically getting your mindset and the practicalities of money kind of matching up, because one of the things that I find is that you can manifest anything, right? But if you're not sure what you're going to do with it in the end, so if you want, say, for example, you want $1 million and you're manifesting and you're thinking about it and you're trying to get it and all of these sort of things, what would you do with it really if it came into your hands? Because if you're not confident with the way that you deal with money, you're not going to be able to bring it to you or make it stick to you. And I had a great example the other day. I was talking to a friend of mine and she said, every time she gets a little bit ahead, something inevitably goes wrong. And when something inevitably goes wrong, it costs her money. So that's kind of where I wanted to start. And oh, sorry, Zoom just went crazy. I've got to share my screen and I just blocked myself. Just give me 2 seconds. Sorry. Anyway, every time she gets to a certain point, something happens and she all of a sudden can't get any further than there. And it's that unconscious block that I think that we need to get to first. And then we need to be managing our money. We need to be in a situation where we know how much we're spending. We're not dreading going to, is there going to be enough money in my account when I, tap my card? And that was the second place I wanted to get to. So I'm just going to share the screen because I've got the beautiful slides that are on here and will look fabulous. So just give me a minute while I organize myself. This was all actually set up, but I unset it up accidentally. So I should be screen sharing now. Can everyone see a mini money makeover workshop title page? Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. We can see it? Good?
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. We are ready to go. So thank you again so much for coming. And I wanted to give a big shout out to my team, my producer, Josh, who comes in and does all the tech for me and then told me 3 times how to use it. And then, I deliberately took it off the Facebook live stream because it wasn't quite where we wanted to be with it. And thank you to Hannah from my office, who does all this amazing work that you see all the time on Instagram and Facebook and just makes everything look stunning and beautiful, and also runs our operations like incredibly well. So big shout out to particularly those 2 members of my team for helping me put all this together or actually for putting it all together and making sure that everything was going to run smoothly, which I think they've done very well. So what we want to do tonight is talk about what are our unconscious blocks, what are the things that are stopping us being or getting where we want to get to, and then over that, what are how we're going to reverse engineer our budget. And that's a little thing that I've been doing for a really long time, which is basically looking at how you spend your money and flipping it. Instead of trying to restrict yourself like you do with diets or anything like that, just starting from the beginning, where are you spending now? What's important to you? What are your values? And then how do we get rid of it? So, and the point is really just to reduce your overwhelm. So those of you that have read my book know that I had a really rough couple of years, and I had been working in financial services for a really long time. I'd started my own business with a business partner who I knew really well, who I really trusted, and then ended up with falling out of that business partnership at the same time as my relationship was breaking up. And it had been a long-term relationship. We'd been living together. He had children, I had a child. Like, it was all a big, huge mess. And I found myself just broke. And I had a heap of credit card debt. And I had a place that I couldn't really afford. And I just started my own business, and I was needing to earn money, and everything was just falling apart and falling to shit. And it took me, who works in financial services and who's worked in financial services for years at this point, about 10 or 5 or 10 years to get myself out of it fully. And that's why I wrote The Happy Money Journey. And that's why I want to do workshops like this, because I want you to learn from my mistakes. And I want to give you the shortcuts that if I'd have known this then, it would have made my life so much easier. So that's where I want to be here. I want to just really help you get to your goals sooner. So I'm all about reducing your overwhelm. And when I talk about your money journey, what I'm talking about is the time that it takes you, sort of as we're growing up, as we're children, we're teenagers, we might have a part-time job, but really our parents are driving the money bus. And they know exactly where the money bus is going, and we've got absolute faith in them. I would have never thought to question my parents when I was a child about where they were spending their money or what they were doing. As you become a teenager, you become, a little bit more independent, and then all of a sudden you're out in the world with your first job. And I don't know who remembers this kind of shock, but all of a sudden you're maybe flat sharing with someone, and you've got to suddenly look after yourself and look after your budget, and no one's really telling you what to do. And you kind of, for most of us, I think, spending everything you earn, or, for the more sensible of us, maybe putting some aside, but just really not in control. And then as you go through life, you might fall in love, you might change from having a job to having a career, you might get married, you might have children, you might do all of these things independently of each other, or all of them all at once. But at some point you might buy a house, and all of a sudden your responsibilities have increased, and you need to be better and better and better with money the whole way you're going through. And then you get to a certain point, your relationship might break down, and that changes your financial situation again. You might change from being employed to being self-employed. You might decide to follow your dreams and travel and do a little eat, pray, love. But things change all the time. And that's why your money's a journey. And we're never in that same stuck place doing that same stuck thing, because our needs change when all of those things change. And we have really different things going on. So I wanted to ask you, what is now, and just if you can put this in the chat for me, what is now your biggest money challenge? Or shout out, I don't care. Awesome. This is a secret, by the way.
I want to do this. I can't work out how to do this.
You can't do the chat?
Oh, I'm sorry, babes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. So you can mute.
I'll do that again.
And you can just, there's a little, like, it's a little speech bubble, and you can just put something in the chat, and it's fun. So let's start, and let's really start with our mindset, because what we think and the way that we talk to ourselves about money is what causes the scarcity and lack mindset. and the scarcity and lack mindset, and this is documented not by Phoebe Blamey, money expert, this is documented by Harvard University and Stanford University and probably Melbourne University, but I didn't actually read any studies from then when I was studying all of this. But big universities have studied the impact of a scarcity and lack mindset on how people manage their money. So it's a true thing. It's not a woo-woo silly thing. The way that we talk to ourselves and some of the things that we know come from basically thinking fast and thinking slow. So when we actually really take the time to consider something, we make a kind of decision, but we're hit with so many things all day that we mainly respond with a whole lot of bias and a whole lot of ways of seeing things. So if our parents had a particular way of dealing with money, we might do exactly the same as them, or we might do the absolute opposite. But whatever we're doing it with a degree of automation and just absolutely not necessarily being very conscious about the way we're thinking. It's all these things are becoming quite unconscious. So same as I'll give you an example. One of the things that my mum really liked doing with me when I was young was going shopping. And we'd go to Chadstone and we'd walk around Chadstone and she'd buy me stuff. And it was kind of, she worked a lot and it was kind of the only time that we spent together. So one of my comfort things when I was a young mum was to go shopping, because that was something that made me feel happy and I didn't mind. And she was not very good with her money and a big overspender. And I'd follow those behaviors. And it took me a long time to realize that, it was quite a self-destructive thing to do. So some of the things that we think automatically, we think just because we think them. So I want you to take a moment now and did everyone bring a piece of paper and a pen? I'm going to say yes, you did. Let's just take a moment now and think of 3 things that have impacted your parent, your impacted you because of your parents' relationship with money. You don't need to share them. You can share them if you want to, because this is a workshop and you can be as interactive as you want, or you can just sit and think about it. What are some of the things that you tell yourself about money? And when we've got that scarcity and lack mindset, we're all often talking about how we don't have enough or there'll never be enough. And I know when I'm in this headspace, because everyone gets in this headspace, when I'm in that scarcity and lack headspace, money to me is finite. Like if I spend what's there, that's all I've got. And there's never going to be any more. And I'm really get very stressed about the whole thing. When you're being conscious about money, what are some of the things that you say to yourself? What are some money boundaries that you've got at the moment? What are some things that you will never spend your money on, that you never, ever do, even if it would make you happy? Things like, I spoke to a friend of mine the other day and she's never had a massage. She just thought it was such an indulgence. She'd never had. Now she's got a little bit of chronic back pain. And I quite like a massage. I quite, those sort of small things, but that was a big boundary to her. Why would she ever do something like that? And that's kind of the direction I'm thinking in with that. Who's someone in your life that crosses your money boundaries? Tell me if I'm going too fast too. Because to me, boundaries are a really big thing. Like um, had a bad habit of topping up a child or letting someone else, particularly when I was in the last very long-term relationship I was in, really letting someone else drive that money bus for me again and not really giving myself that space and time to work out what my wants and what my desires were. So let's get to that. What are some of the things that you want? What do you really want? And it's easy to say more money, or a better job, or sorry, it's easy to say more money, but if we really dig deep into it, that feeling of wealth, that feeling of abundance, all of those things won't come if you have more money, because the mindset that we've got is the mindset that we kind of almost need to get over, if that makes sense. We can use affirmations, meditation, all of those things, and that helps to a degree, but really want to get into having a look at what were some of the things that you have picked up along the way. Then I want you to just pick one of those things, just one thing. One thing might be the thing that affects you the most, might be the thing that affects you the least. And I want you to just ask yourself, is it true? Like, if you're thinking with your thinking slow, conscious mind, is that true? Is it real? And if your answer to that is yes, the next question is, what if it wasn't? What if it's not true? Who does that make you? What happens in your life if it's not true? And you can take your time, and you can do this. We've got this exercise in the Mini Money Makeover, but we've also got this exercise in our workbook, which I am going to give you at the end of tonight. I'm going to send you a copy of it. It's normally comes with the book and does all the things, but I just think it's a valuable resource. And as we're thinking of, so just wanted to let you know that you don't have to answer all of the questions all of the time. We're not going to leave them hanging there. It's just, I want you to just do one now so that you can get an impression of how the exercise works. And then you'll get a copy of it. And I want to just one moment, because this is about you. This is not anyone else's eyes on you, judging you, having any kind of consideration. Your money is your money, and no one's got any say over. You earn it, and you can spend it however you want. You choose, and that is the most important thing about money, I think. Now, I want to talk about boundaries just for a second in light of the mindset, and just to say, quite often when we're not sure about our money, when we're not sure about how we're spending it, what we're doing with it, all of those things, it's easy to slip into behaviors where we let our boundaries go down a little bit. When you express your boundaries, when you say no to things, one of my friends is going through a bit of a rough financial time at the moment, but she keeps coming out and spending money that I kind of know she doesn't have. And I said to her, we don't have to go out to dinner. We can go for a walk, or we can go and do something different. We can go and do something that might be a little bit more financially appropriate for her at the moment. There's no harm in putting up that boundary and saying no to one thing, but suggesting something else. Expressing what you need, telling someone that something doesn't work for you. So back to that darling relationship that I had at the same time as my business was busting up. I had been paying his car loan for, I think, maybe a year and a half. And he hadn't, my whole thing was, we're in it together. Whatever's going to happen, happens. But I'd been paying his car loan for a year and a half. while he switched from job to job, and he always had a company car, and I'd sold my car, and when we broke up, I didn't have a car, and I kind of put myself in a hole. I didn't like his car. It was huge. It was a Prado or something like that. I didn't like it. Didn't want it. Didn't put up the boundary that I needed to put up to say, no, that's not what I need. That's not going to serve me. And so ended up in a bit of financial shit, not having a car in the end. The next thing, and look, I know you've probably heard this before, but taking a moment when we're trying to get over that feeling of scarcity and that feeling of lack, taking a moment and finding 3 things that we are grateful for every day. And there's not much that we do in our life that isn't associated in some way with money. And it could be, I'm grateful for the clothes I wear. I'm grateful for the roof over my head. Sometimes I'm just grateful for the fact that I got up in the morning, that the sun's shining, that, whatever. But find a couple of things that you're grateful for every day, and you start to look at the world really differently. And you start to look at it as something that is there for you, and instead of something that's happening to you. Somehow gratitude gives you this feeling of overwhelming control and certainty, and it really takes your mind from one place to another and really helps us shift from that scarcity to that feeling of abundance. And I am not saying this, again, as Phoebe Blamey, financial expert, written a book. I'm saying this because those studies that I was talking about earlier, those Harvard studies and the Stanford studies, which I can share with you, found this to be true. So when we're experiencing scarcity and lack, and we're scared and we're nervous and we've got fear all over us, then having a moment to every day to take a moment and 3 things that we're grateful for really does make an absolute difference, as well as questioning what you've got going on. So one thing that I want you to take away from this is the gratitude, because it will really make a difference between what you're feeling about money and how you could possibly be feeling about money. Saying that, I want to just talk for a moment about debt, because debt is scary and horrific. And I was in at one point $35,000 worth of credit card debt, and I thought my world was going to explode. I was so scared. I'd reached the end of my credit limits. So I don't know if any of you have ever got into credit card debt, but this is how it works. You've got this credit card and you've got this much owing, and then they give you a bit of a top up, and then you've got this much, and you keep spending up to the limit. And once you've really spent up to the limit on all your credit cards, you've got no money and you've got no access to cash, because all of your money then goes on paying back the debt of the credit cards. And credit cards are an interesting beast, because while interest rates on everything else goes up and down, credit cards have remained steady at around about 20 to 27% over the last maybe 30 years since the invention of credit cards. So in the Happy Money Journey mini money makeover course, we've got a whole big section on debt, and we really dig deep into debt. But for now, if you are in debt, I want you to do 3 things for me. I want you to really have a look at, sorry, I'll get back to the right slide. Have a look at the debt you're in. Just take a moment for it. It feels shitty and horrible, but this will make it feel better. Take ownership of it. You did the best you could with the resources that you had available to you at the time. This is your debt. You own it, you owe it, and I want you to approach the creditor. If you can't afford to make a big arrangement, make a small arrangement. Most financial instruments, so credit cards, personal loans, all of those sort of things, because they're personal, covered by the National Consumer Credit Code, you can enter into hardship arrangements if you need to. But approach them. If you can't afford it, make the arrangements that you need to. Be upfront about the help and support you need. After this, if you're in massive debt, come to us for a chat, because we are here to help you. And this is from the Happy Money Journey point of view. be upfront, get support. There's a heap of resources, but the first resource that you need to go to is the lender that's got you into this situation. Be realistic about a payment arrangement as well. So I had a client that was in massive debt with her rates, and I mean massive, like I don't think she'd paid her rates for 10 years. And it wasn't going to be something that she could immediately go and suddenly magic up the money. She needed to make an arrangement, but the arrangement needs to be realistic. And the council was trying to push her into an unrealistic arrangement, which was, let's call it $5,000 a month. Who would that be possible for? Like, it's just ridiculous. So you need to be able to pay your debt, but still live your life, and then stick with it. And if you can't stick with it, contact them again and tell them that it's not working for them. But take that moment, because that's owning that debt is sadly part of getting out of your scarcity and lack feeling. So the next part we're going to talk about is my favorite part, and this is all about how you spend your money. So who's got internet banking on their phones? I want you to get your phone out, have a look at it, and just think, what were your last 10 transactions? What were your last transactions over the last week? Have a little look at where you're spending your money. And if you're a little bit out of control, if there's something that you want to change. Now, again, the course goes into this in way more detail. But this is also something that we've done on the podcast. This is something that we've done in lives before, and it can take a bit. We've got an app that you can use, but just for now, just for the purpose of this exercise, just have a look at your last few transactions, and it's going to give you a really realistic snapshot into spending and where your money goes. And your money goes basically in three different ways. It goes on your basics, which are your things that you have to have, like a roof over your head, food, clothing, electricity, gas, all of those things. It goes on things that you want to do, like takeaway food, maybe going out, having a few drinks, all of those sort of things. And then the luxuries, your holidays, your massages, all of those really luxurious things. And you're going to sit somewhere between, I can't keep track of my money and I know where every cent goes. And I can tell you that before I started doing this, I was at the I don't keep track of my money. It just comes in and goes out, and I've got no idea what happens to it. So I want you to have a look at those transactions, and you can see out of those transactions which would qualify as basics, which would qualify as discretionary, and which would qualify as luxury. You can see that and make that decision yourself. That's not something that I'm going to give you any judgment about. And then I want you to see somewhere where you spend too much money, or you do something and you're looking at it and you're thinking, gee, there's a couple of Uber Eats there, or I didn't know I bought 3 coffees a day, or something like that, where it's just repetitive spending that's kind of, I want to say rote. It's something that you don't think about anymore and you just do. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. I've got a friend of mine that every time he lives in between work and a coffee shop, and every time he walks past the coffee shop he buys himself a coffee. So he's maybe spending $10 a day on coffee, let's call it, because I don't think he has fancy milk, so it's $5 coffee. $10 a day, $50 a week, quite a lot of money over the course of it, like over $2,000 in coffee over the course of a year. How many coffees of those is he actually getting the pleasure and the enjoyment and the joy out of? And how many is he just buying as an automatic thing? And it's something that I really like looking at, because it's something that I really resonate with, doing that automatic spending. Like every time you're walking past a coffee shop, you buy a coffee. So how about instead, every time you walk past a coffee shop, you just keep walking? Not that I want small businesses to go down, and then once a week, what if you take someone out for a coffee and you sit in the coffee shop and you have a beautiful coffee and you have a beautiful experience? And that's what I mean by that kind of automated spending. I got one of my team, big buyer of takeaway food, and for me, it takes longer to get Uber Eats than it does to cook something myself. So those sort of little awarenesses of where your money might be going, and I'm not judging, but I am using those two very deliberate examples because for about 90% of people where I go through their transactions, that is their biggest pain point. That is their death by 1,000 cuts, the takeaway and the small spending that adds up really quickly, and Uber's mad. So when we do this in more detail, we go through 6 months spending or 3 months spending, it gives you a lot more clues. But just for tonight, have a look at where you're at with your things and have a look at one thing that you could possibly think that you might change. And in the workbook that I'm giving you at the end of this, all of this is there and it shows you how to go through it and how to go through your transactions. And we've got some small videos that I can share with you as well. Any questions, comments, judgments? Then the next bit, so remember back in the first bit, we talked about our basics, our discretionaries, and our luxuries. This is how simple this system is for me to get my shit together with money and get my head around it. What I did was I created 3 accounts for myself. Not 50 accounts that were all named after fire hydrants, not complex things that I couldn't get my head around, but just 3 things. Basics for me didn't include food because food to me was something that could go up and down. Basics for me were the things that were the same every month. So I had an exact amount that I could transfer into there. Plus it was the things that I had to pay for every year. So like car registration, getting my car serviced, little asides that I needed to account for, which I could do easily because I'd been through all of my spending, all of the way that things looked. So by going through all of my spending, I was able to work out what my basics were. I didn't do it by saying, okay, I think I should be spending 50% of my income on this. I didn't do it by saying people that earn what I earn should be spending this. I did it by going through my transactions. And I had a client at one stage, Rosie, who was just gorgeous and a really nice woman, and she loved her animals. She had dogs and cats and horses and birds, and she had the works. And she went to one of those, I don't know if you've seen them, they're advertised on daytime television a lot, where you can go in and you can get someone to take care. It's called My Budget, and it's called similar things to My Budget. And you can go in and you can get someone to take care of your whole budget and tell you what you should be spending and pay your bills for you and basically get your financial shit together. So they did this for Rosie, and Rosie was a spectacular woman who was full of beans. And they told Rosie that the thing that she needed to let go of was pet food. Like, seriously, this was her greatest love. It was her greatest joy. She loved her animals. She loved her horses. But they told her she should get rid of the pet food. So that's the kind of attitude that I often see with people when they're talking about money and how we spend it. They're not actually considering your needs, your wants, your desires, your things that make you feel good, your things that, could be a luxury, your things that are going to really make a difference in your life. Because you go out and earn this money, right? So you don't want to be spending it on being sad. You want to be spending it on stuff that brings you joy. Trim the fat, take away the things like takeaways and too many of this and too many of that. And one of the things, and getting back to working out how we're spending money, we had an office culture a few years ago where we would go out to lunch all the time. Now we've got an office culture where we sit and eat lunch together every day, but we all bring our lunch from home. And sometimes our production manager will come in and cook us a barbecue, but mainly we're bringing our lunch from home. And it's really good. It's fun. It's nice. It still gives us that sense of community, but we're not going out and spending $20 a day on something that we don't really want to eat. And that's where we get into this basic discretionary and luxuries. So for me, my basics are the things that I know I have to pay for. For me, my discretionary is stuff that can vary, and it's also something I want to have on my card. So my basics account is cut away. I don't need to have card access to that. My discretionary account has where I go supermarket shopping. It does going out to dinner. It does my basic everyday needs that are my basic everyday wants that are not needs, clothes, stuff like that, all live in that account for me. And that can go up and down. So that basically means if I've got $300 sitting in that account for the week and I go and spend $200 on clothes, then I then have $100 left to spend on groceries, going out, doing all that sort of stuff, because I've reverse engineered my budget. I know how much I roughly would be normally spending on that. I've put that amount of money in there. And I've just got to go with the peaks and troughs after that. I can't be sneaking money from the basics account and propping up my discretionary account. That's not allowed in my head. And luxuries for me are things that are a little bit further away. So going on holidays, doing, something spectacular, weekends away. Potentially those luxuries for you could be saving for a house, saving for a holiday, saving for anything. That's what goes in my luxuries account. And my first two are bank accounts, but my third one is actually micro investment accounts. And that just works well for me because, again, the luxury money is locked away from me. It actually takes 3 days to take it out of one of those accounts. There's also high interest savings accounts. You can, if you've got a home loan, you could put it in your offset account, but it's the keeping the three things separate so that you know that your basics are covered and put aside. Your discretionary income is what you've got to spend, and your luxuries are just that, your luxuries. So it really isn't about knowing how much money you've got all the time and keeping an eye on every penny. What it is, it's about moving from being disorganized to just being a little bit organized. And it can take some time and there's some trial and error, but that's the key to that. So now we've got a bit of a starting point, and now you know the big secret to how I started on my happy money journey and where it got me and why I did it and all of those sort of things. And the key between having my account set up like that and where my mindset is, or where your mindset can be, is that we then have the ability to feel safe and secure where we are. And that to me is a biggie. That's the biggest one. That being able to go up to the supermarket counter and tap and not be scared of whether I'm going to have enough money to pay for that or not. That's what that does for me. So I want you to take 3 things away from tonight. I want you to practice the 3 gratefuls a day. I want you to have a look at your spending and just reverse engineer. Do it slowly. Just every so often set an alarm and have a glance at your spending and what you've been spending on, and just be a little bit conscious about it. And have a think about setting up your accounts so that you are a little bit more bulletproof. So that's it. Any questions? Anyone want to go live, talk, have a chat?
Hi, Phoebe. Thank you so much. It was so great. I think just what you've done is demystified some of this process, which has, I feel like so many times I try to get financial advice and it feels too big. It feels too new. It feels like people are speaking a completely different language. So I think I really appreciate the way that you use, I'm going to put in inverted commas, ordinary language to describe stuff that's really achievable.
Because it is really achievable, Mel. Like one of the things that that really annoys me is the way that they name investment products and the way that they name things so that they just seem so complicated. And I'm really sure, am I ladies only now? It's a patriarchal concept. It keeps us poor. And I want to, that's the thing that I really want to get our heads around, is that we don't need to, it's not hard. It's our money. We earn it. We're smart enough to go out and have a career or a job or a something, or get benefits, or however we're bringing our money in. We're smart enough to do that. But we keep getting told that we're not smart enough to spend it well, and I think we are. Any other questions, comments? All right. So I'm going to just quickly talk you through our mini money makeover, because my team and I are very excited about this. We're launching it tomorrow. I am absolutely thrilled about how it looks, how it feels, and all of those sort of things. And it's about breaking your money down. And we go into, so the things that we've talked about tonight, we go into just a million times more depth. So we talk about mindset, we talk about spending, we talk about how to set yourself up, and then how to get on your happy money journey so that you have exactly what you need to do. We're going to do for you, for all of those that are here tonight, and for all of those that signed up for the workshop that haven't been able to make it for whatever reason, we'll get a video. But just for you, we're going to do $50 off our mini money. I can say this, our mini money makeover course. So it would normally go, it's normally $149, but we'll do it for you guys for $99. If you need to make any payment plans, we've got people that have paid it forward. There's a whole lot of ways that you can get into it. So if that's too steep for you, please let us know, and we will help you source something and sort something out for you, because we definitely have scholarships. So this is something that's self-paced, so you can take it in chunks. It's video and audio and workbooks and the whole situation. And we also, it comes with 2 bonuses. It comes with debt demolition and a 30-day spend cleanse. Debt demolition digs deep into your debt and helps you really get out of that shame spiral to start with, but then actually really face up and do the things that you need to do to get out of debt. And the spend cleanse is a thing that Katrina, a woman that worked for me many years ago, and I did. We started doing it, it must have been about 2014. We decided to buy nothing new in May. And that was the start of it. And that meant that we had to be really creative if we had any parties to go to make presents, to, do things that we weren't spending any money, not buying stupid stuff like shampoo and makeup and all of those sort of things, and trying to just really get down, emptying our cupboards, getting really creative with our recipes while we used all the tins and the flour and everything. We went wild, and we did this every year for years. And I've lightened it a little bit now, because I just don't have so much waste at home as I used to. But the spend cleanse is really good fun. And that was what I would love you to be part of those things. We're also live in the Happy Honeys every week with questions, now that we're launching the course, with questions from the course, so that we're going to be there a lot more. So if you are not in our Facebook group, we would love to see you there. And of course, at the end, I just want to say thank you. Thank you because you've come here tonight, and thank you for taking the time to, what Mel said, just take some time and demystify the shit that you hear about money that just isn't real. It's far more simple and far easier to get your head around than we give it credit for. This is educational purposes only. I'm not providing specific advice to you because you haven't asked me any specific questions. And even if you had, I'd have to stay on the education only because I've let my financial planning qualification. I've got the qualification. I've let the license go. It was too expensive. That's why no one can get decent financial advice, because the poor financial planners have to pay about $200,000 before they wake up in the morning. If you have any comments, if there's anything that you need, me and my team are absolutely here to improve and elevate your happy money journey. So anything that you need, just drop us a line. It's what we're here for. This is where you can find us. And of course, we'll be sending out some emails after this to follow up with you and just make sure you had a happy time tonight. But thank you so much for being here. Anyone got any other questions before we go? All right. Thanks very much. I'll stay on for about a couple of minutes just to see if there's anything that anyone wants to ask me. I'm here.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. My name is Hannah and I am the producer of this podcast along with Joshua Dean Graham. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we live and work and pay our respects to the ancestors and elders past, present and emerging. We are grateful and honoured to live on this land and pay homage to the traditions of storytelling communities and the connection to land. Thank you for listening to our podcast.
Disclaimer. Just a reminder that the advice that's contained in this podcast is general in nature. It doesn't take into account your individual needs and circumstances, and we recommend considering the appropriateness of any advice to your individual circumstances and needs. We always recommend seeking the advice of an expert before making any financial decisions.